Yeah. So should we, I think we should begin, right? Just respecting the time. Right. Yeah, people still joining in. I'm like two minds, wait a little bit more, or should we get started? But I will begin. So welcome, esteemed coaches, to our first fireside chat conversation, which we hope to convert into a series of event. I'm Kenneth Wheeler, and I will be moderator for the session. If I may request us to be on mute, just to not have that distraction. So if I may request everyone to go on mute. Thank you. So this initiative is a part of our effort to really bring value to each one of us who are either directly or indirectly associated with the business of coaching. So it is the first step forward towards creating an immense value to anyone under the bigger umbrella of events that we are, the community builders, the group of people that have volunteered to come together, are planning and organizing for our WhatsApp group, the business of coaching. So as of now, it's exciting to say that they are 49 members, and we would really encourage more and more to join. So we put this session in a space of, may I
Hey Kenneth,
request
sorry,
people to
sorry
go
to
on-
interrupt you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just one quick thing. I think maybe Sandeep is not at his phone and only you have permission since you're the host now. Can you just mute Sandeep? Sandeep is where the
Like,
background noise is
what is
coming from. And then,
that?
so if you click on Sandeep, if you click the little drop down, you should see a mute button. Do you see this? And maybe if it'll be helpful to you, go ahead and make me host. I can manage some.
Okay, I've lost you. Can you say
You
something?
muted me. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. We're good to go. Take
All
it
right.
away.
Sorry, I lost my chain of thoughts. Yeah, I was saying that we've put this in a three phase. The first phase talks about the why behind what we are going to have as a conversation. The second gets into more specific around also looking at opportunities from the form that was rolled out. And we had a lot of inputs that came in from the audience to really talk about what matters most to them around the coaching of business aspect. One of the things that stood out was how to get that first client. So we would walk on that journey and explore that a bit. And we've kept around, let's say 10, 12, maximum 15 minutes for a question and answer round towards the end. Just a disclaimer, given the time, we've got, let's say, another 55, 54 minutes. We may not get to all the questions, but the idea is that we have the opportunity to continue this conversation on our WhatsApp group, business of coaching, as well as feel free to reach out to Vivek if you would like to kind of get in touch directly and have more inputs around specific questions that you have. So that was just a setup of expectations so we know the flow of conversation. So with that, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome our guest speaker for today, Mr. Vivek Sundaram. Thank you, Vivek, for accepting the invitation, and we appreciate your time and openness to really share with all of us your on-ground learning from your experience and your world of business of coaching, which we hope to take away for each one of us as valuable insights for us. So thank you, Vivek.
Thank you so much, Kenneth, for having me. And thank you, all of you, for showing up. Super excited to be doing this. And yeah, looking forward.
Okay, great. So Vivek, let us begin by saying that let's walk us a bit about your background. Let's understand your transition into the business of coaching. I feel that's a good space to start.
Excellent. I will start with a brief blurb and tell you guys a little bit about my journey so far and how I transitioned to this. I think it'll also be useful for you guys in terms of what areas I do have some knowledge about and where that might be helpful. So, quick blurb. I was born in Mumbai. I spent the first 10 years of my life in Tanzania and East Africa. My Dad was working there at the time. Most of my formative years were in Mumbai, where I did my middle school, high school. I did my bachelor's in computer engineering. And then I came to the US in 2001 to do graduate school in computer science. And I've lived here ever since. So I first did my master's in computer science, um, graduated in 2003, joined Microsoft, worked as a software developer for a couple of years on Microsoft Office. And then I spent 15 years doing product management at various places in various roles. I was first at Microsoft working on Office. I spent 5 years at Google where I worked on search ads. I went to LinkedIn where I worked on the newsfeed and the homepage. Then I worked at the startup called Refresh that LinkedIn acquired. After that, I worked in the growth team at Instagram. And my last job was at Amazon, where I worked on this product called Amazon Key. One thing I also did during my product management career is teaching. I really enjoyed teaching. So I taught a 10-week product management course, both for new product managers and those looking to up level. And I did 5 iterations of these with 2 organizations, Product School and General Assembly. Fast forward to December 2019, I took what I was expecting would be a small break, but ended up being a really long break. So I took a 2-year break. And then the Feb of last year is when I started my entrepreneurial journey and started my current venture that I'm calling Work Genie. So Work Genie's mission has evolved to be affordable on-demand exec coaching for all people. What I've done with Work Genie so far is I started in the Feb of last year in conversations with some folks who had worked with earlier. 2 conversations, in fact, come to mind. One was with this guy, Mike Welch, who used to head up learning and development at Facebook when I was at Instagram. And the other was with this guy, Steve Cadigan, who used to be the chief people officer at LinkedIn back when I was there. So these guys connected me with a few other entrepreneurs working in the coaching space. And that's how I came to learn about the ICF. And I very quickly decided that it would be worthwhile for me to get trained as a coach myself. So I finished a 20-week coaching foundations program with Cocharia and followed that up with another 20-week advanced coaching program. So in terms of where I am in my journey, I've finished the classroom hours for the PCC certification. And because Work Genie is mostly what I do on the side, I've probably accumulated, I want to say maybe 300 plus hours. And my aspiration through the rest of this year is to tie a bow and complete my PCC certification. I started taking on paying clients in the Jan of this year. And where I am right now, I have around 10 to 15 paying clients, mostly early stage entrepreneurs and tech workers, primarily because that happens to be my social network. That is something I want to actively work on and change. And where I see myself, I think this again, it's a journey and we're all evolving, but I feel I want to maybe with 70% of my time help early stage entrepreneurs because I feel that's both an area I enjoy a lot and where I can have broad impact, but also with 20 to 30% of my time, try to serve underserved markets, people who might not ordinarily have access to coaching, teachers, maybe even grandparents and other people like that. So that is a journey. I think I'll stop my ramble so we can actually get on with questions, but that's just a little bit about me to give you guys a sense of my experiences, which might be helpful as you think about areas I might be able to help.
Totally. I believe it is helpful. There is a whole gamut of exploration that you've done. And you said that it's all a journey and we're all evolving. So I'd like us to go back to the Work Genie that you spoke about, which is your setup, and talk us through the journey phase of how it started, what was the purpose. You spoke about a bit, but what really got you into the groove of saying Work Genie is what it has to be for me? Maybe a bit on that.
Happy to, happy to. So I think the idea of Work Genie, right, is something which I think I had around 2009, 2010, where in general, one thing I used to enjoy a lot was, say, I would be the person people would come to, for example, when they were preparing for an interview or looking for a new job or where should I apply or what should I do. And I used to enjoy doing that a lot. So this basic idea has been baking at the back of my head. And like I was telling you guys, I'd also done teaching. Now, in the Feb of 2022, when I was thinking about what do I want to do next, I was like, hey, should I get a regular job? I was like, this area of helping people be the best that they can be is something that's interesting to me. So I spoke to a couple of companies who were doing things in recruiting, um, learning systems, etc. And I decided this is as good a time as any to try to do something of my own. And I think the best thing for me at that time was there wasn't this opportunity cost of, oh, I have to leave a job and start something, because I was coming out of doing nothing. So it's like, all right, let's do it. Then when I started, one thing I've learned through product management in general, I think this carries to many other areas of a business, right? The three things you want to do first is try to get very focused on who is your target customer, what specific problem you're solving for them, and only then think about how you're going to do it, because this how will evolve a lot. So what I did was, since I had at that point a good 19 years of work experience, some of it with teaching. So I drew upon my network. These were friends, former coworkers, former students. I recruited around 5 of them, and I told them, hey, I'm doing this work GD thing. So you guys are the guinea pigs. Let's see how this goes. So I started off with, hey, let's just do a weekly call. And I was thinking about, during my time in product management or as a manager of other product managers, helping them think through and draft their OKRs, so their objectives and key results, helping them reason about what they're doing during a week and how it maps to their larger goals, maybe reflecting on what they did which served them and where they went off track so they could come back a little bit. These were little experiments that I was launching. And it was interesting, and I was playing around. So the other idea which was top of mind for me, right? If you look at learning and development in organizations today, so if you look at the performance scale, I'm assuming most of you guys are familiar with this performance scale of 1 through 4, where 4 is for people who are, or 4.5 is for people who are nailing it, 3 is for people who are meeting expectations, etc. Right? So one of my observations was, most of the during my work career, I had gone through several trainings like Six Thinking Hats, Crucial Conversations, Radical Candor, all of those, and I found them very, very useful. But I had two observations. First, even at progressive organizations like, say, for example, Instagram and Facebook, these were typically offered once every quarter on the quarterly boundary. And I noticed, both for myself and is related by others, people would go into these with a lot of enthusiasm. The trainings were often very well delivered. They would come out of it with a lot of energy. But then, say, in a week, 2, 3, or 4, the sheen would wear off. And people would go back to their old habits, and only some of the learning stuck. So this got me thinking about two things. It was, rather than have these scheduled L&D things, which is great, what if we could have just in time, just enough, in the moment interventions? Like, let's say I, as a manager, was struggling with a particular challenge. And in speaking to, say, Work Genie, it discovered that, hey, this is a small mindset shift, and this concept of radical candor is something you could think about incorporating. So rather than sign up for the next available workshop, which could be 3 months away, maybe I could listen to a 15, 20-minute blurb or blink, and then somebody could talk me through applying that mental model in the context of my everyday life. So this just in time, just enough, and applied to your particular situation thing is what I was interested in. So I was playing around with this a little bit. I also used to read extensively on pop psychology for a very long time. So I knew about a lot of these things, and I was able to, when somebody came to me with a situation, I was like, aha, I have just the thing for you. Point them to, say, a TED Talk or something else, have them listen to it, reflect on it, and then help them think about how they would apply it in their lives. This went on for a bit. And then this is when those two conversations, which I was telling you about, happened. I think when you're getting into any new space, whether it's entrepreneurship, product management, or even in the business of coaching, it's useful to think about those questions. Who's my target customer? What is the job they're trying to get done? What tools do they use to do the job today? Where do these tools sometimes fall short? And how can I, as an entrepreneur, make doing that same job cheaper, faster, and better? So when I spoke to both Steve and Mike, they told me a little bit about the ICF. I spoke to a few coach training agencies, and then very quickly, when I spoke to Ram at Coacharya, I was like, hey, these guys are amazing. What also attracted me to that place is because they had this mix of East meets West. So Ram, he had a very successful career as an executive and also as a CEO working on his own corporation. So he was what you call an accidental coach. And I found that many, many great coaches are actually this way. He got into coaching in his late 50s. And then the other story about him, he actually spent 7 years on his quest to be a monk. So he's not only read, but written several books on the Upanishads and the other Indic scriptures. He's just as well versed with, say, NLP, SEL, and all the Western concepts. And this East meets West thing is something he brings to his coaching. So I spoke to Ram, and then Ujjwal ji, who is my coach trainer with whom I did both my ACC and PCC. And that has been a fantastic journey. And now this was a complete new learning for me. It was a new muscle. Until I started my ICF training, my view of coaching was a lot more like what sports coaching commonly is, which is, let's say you have a golfer. You have them practice their art, and then an expert golfer can watch you and say, hey, here are a few adjustments you can make to your swing. Here's a practice you can put into place. And so in a few minutes of observations and a short conversation, he can give you some meaningful tips which would make a step function difference. And this was my view of coaching, which is, hey, if you know about something, whether it's product management or cooking or winemaking or swimming, you can see somebody who's doing that, and then you can help them with these tips. Now, when I was talking to Ujjwalji and were going through the ICF programs, it opened up this brand new window for me where all of these coaching programs advertise themselves as, we will help you to coach anybody in any situation on any topic without having to be a subject matter expert yourself. Now, even while teaching, I used to ascribe to Socratic teaching, where I'd often start my classes with posing a problem, asking the class to come up with solutions, and then fill in the gaps myself. But this whole thing of coaching, where no, you need to know nothing about it and the answers emerge from them, was a very, very powerful thing for me. I think the thing that captures it most, this is a new muscle that I have built over the last years I've gone through my ICF coaching journey, is this. Ujjwalji, in fact, in my first conversation with him, talked about this book called The Inner Game of Tennis, where he talked about this equation, which is performance is potential minus interference. And all you do as a coach is help clients remove the interference that they have created for themselves. So you are not adding anything. The questions and the answers both lie within them. You're simply shining a light, and through the process of extreme presence and appreciative inquiry, help them focus on what's working and how they can bring their attention to it and make it expand. The other thing I wanted to say about coaching is that coaching has actually kickstarted my spiritual journey as well. I think if I fast forward to, say, the Jan of 2022, I think I was what you would call an agnostic. I was like, look, it's not like I don't believe in God. I just haven't seen any evidence that God exists. He may, and I used to go with the quote that God may exist perhaps for you in your imagination. I think this is a separate talk, so I won't go into it too much, but coaching has kind of created a 360 on that, which is I have become a true believer. I think I want to get into specific questions and where I can be helpful, but I also want to touch on a couple of points. So I'll try to keep this to a brief 3 to 4 minutes more. The first thing which I found, this is an important point to make. So when I started Work Genie, right, it was all about this, hey, affordable on-demand coaching for everybody. That is the way I was thinking about it. That's the way I wrote about it. I was like, hey, this is about fitness of body, mind, and intellect. And when people would ask me, who is it for? I would say it's for everybody. The story I would come up with is whether it's your grandmom or whether it's a teacher in Rwanda or a Fortune 500 exec or even a championship basketball player, this is something you can do. a lot of people try to tell me, no, Vivek, you should pick a niche, etc. I was like, bah, all that is for, I really want to do everything for everyone. And here's what I discovered. So while the process of training to be a coach is all about the process, right? For example, all the programs, they focus on the process and all else will follow. And the way you would coach, say, for example, a CEO, or say somebody who's a chef or a mom, are all very similar in terms of the markers and the flow. Here's what's different. In order to train to be a good coach, you need to focus on process. And the process really is transferable and works across situations. But when you go and offer your product to people, nobody is interested in purchasing process. They're interested in purchasing results. And so what I discovered was you don't do the niching for you do it for them. For example, I know a couple of successful coaches. One guy comes to mind. He coaches execs at various organizations. He also does, say, for example, marriage coaching, where he helps people build successful marriages, or parenting coaching. What he told me was, Vivek, look, the CEOs who I coach, they're not especially interested in the fact that I coach couples or parents. Most of the times when parents approach me, it's not very interesting to them that I happen to coach some top flight CEOs. Yes, it's happened several times that I have a top flight CEO who I have a relationship with. And in the process of our coaching relationship, they bring up a problem that they have, say, with their partner or an opportunity with their child. I'm also happy to offer it. But even guys who do it all have separate presences, separate brands, and separate messages for each of their audiences. I think this was a big insight for me, which is, even if you do want to do everything for everyone, the niching that you're doing is not so much for you as it is for the audience. Another story somebody talked to me about is, they were like, think about a product like Coke, right? Which literally has billions of users across all these countries, and it's exactly the same product. But the way Coke is branded in, say, Mexico versus Amsterdam versus, say, for example, China, or say some village in Africa, it is all different. So think of the niching as connecting to the person, the challenge they're facing, the who of the person you're trying to serve, the what of the challenge they're facing or the opportunity that they can realize, and how you can help them along that journey. I think with that, I'm going to pause for a little bit. I hope that was useful. Happy to field any specific questions.
Let me just look at chat if I have any questions right now. Yep, not at the moment. So, Vivek, to build the conversation forward, two things that comes to mind to me, for me at least, and I'm sure from the audience side as well. You spoke about, consider the what and the who part of it. The how will evolve eventually. And then I heard you say, great coaches are accidental coaches. They come into coaching almost by an accident. But when we translate that into the business of coaching, I don't think so accidentally you can excel in business of coaching. And that took me to this comment or quote from Jeff Bezos, who said that what people talk about you when you're not in the room is the true definition of your personal brand. So in the context of brand and related to work, Jeannie, what would you like to elaborate? Because in this business of coaching, the perception matters. How are you perceived by the audience and the people that you're going out for in terms of clientele? That matters. So how can anyone in that journey who's trying to be very specific about the brand get a clarity that helps them specifically design the value that they want to provide?
Got it. Great question.
Yeah. Okay.
The question does make sense. I'll address that question. I'll also address it in the context of a couple of questions which I'm seeing coming into chat. So Vanita asked, how did you get your first client? And then Yasit asked, how long did it take to understand your niche? And then Shivani asked, how does a coach who's interested in serving multiple demographics market at the same time? And all of these are actually very related to the Uber question that you posed. So here's what I would say. The beautiful thing about training to be a coach is that it's training by doing. For example, even at the point where you get your ACC, you have logged at least 100 hours of coaching. By the time you get to your PCC, you have logged 500 hours of coaching, right? So nowadays, for example, I speak to a few coaches. I do this more informally, which is, say, for example, in fact, from coaching journeys and others, some coaches who in peer coaching, we're talking about building their business and discovering what they want to do, right? I think in general, the approach I take, and this is just a approach, is set an intent and then experiment and then very carefully observe and reflect. What this translates to in the coaching context is if you have logged, whether it's 25, 30, or 40 hours of coaching, reflect a little bit on who are the people who I served, what are their backgrounds, what kinds of challenges was I able to help them with, which were the clients who I felt most fulfilled coaching. I enjoyed the process the most. Which were the clients who benefited most from the process, where I was able to make a meaningful difference. And this will typically help you converge in on, oh, I really enjoy working with, say, for example, women returning to the career after a break. I really enjoy working with coaches who are looking to set up their business. I really enjoy working with early stage entrepreneurs where they have a lot of autonomy, but then not a lot of resources as they're thinking about where they want to take their thing. Or, oh, I actually enjoy working with first time managers who are learning that individual contribution and managing are two very different games and how to play at them. Or I enjoy working with senior managers who have been working for a while, or I enjoy working with people who are trying to reinvent their career. So I think if I was to sum it up, again, it'll be around don't spend a little bit of time reflecting on it, but realize that this is an experiment which will continuously change. For example, my answer to this very question, say 6 months ago, is a little different than my answer to this question right now. And I suspect my answer to this question 6 months from now will also have evolved. As long as you have a current working model of these are the people I want to help, the who of your target market, these are the kinds of situations I want them to excel in, the what of that market, I think you will be in a good place in terms of building it out. Now, to get to these very specifics, how did I get my first client? So, in my case, right, the other thing I will encourage people to do is as they go through their coaching journeys and logging hours, the 100 and the 500, right? Emphasize both breadth and depth. And what I mean by that is be sure to coach a variety of clients, but also embark on journeys rather than one off sessions. Because in, let's say, for example, I had 100 hours to coach, right? If I did 100, if I did sessions with 100 clients with just one session each, then I would have learned a lot in terms of breadth. But what I would have missed out on is depth. If instead I only picked one client and did 100 sessions with them, then I would have tremendous depth, but I would have missed out on breadth because I've only spoken to one person. So, what I would emphasize is even in your peer coaching, make a very deliberate effort to get both breadth and depth. For example, if it was 100 hours you were looking to log, perhaps try to get 20 clients with whom you're able to do a journey of, say, 5 sessions each, that kind of thing. The reason this is important is A, it gives you exposure, and B, it allows you to connect the dots back to that earlier question I was talking about. Of all these 20 people, who are the clients who I felt the most fulfilled, where I was able to make the most meaningful difference, and what I was able to do more of? Now, coming to that question of my first client, in fact, all my clients so far, because I've not yet launched kind of the growth phase. I'm waiting to tie a bow on my PCC before I go look for clients. Most of them have come from this simple trick, which is rather than go to, let's take, for example, a fictitious person, say Priya. So suppose I thought she was a good candidate and she and people like her would benefit from my coaching. The question I go to her with, see, Priya, here's my offer. I'm getting started on my coaching journey. And to start off, this is the package I have to offer, which is at a significant discount because I'm just getting started on my journey and I'm looking to gain experience. If you know of anybody who would be interested, please let them know. Now, when I asked this question to a lot of my friends and colleagues to whom I had been offering free coaching during my peer coaching days, more than a handful raised their hands and said, hey, that thing we've been doing, I would love to do it. So they signed up as my first clients. My very first clients were essentially friends, co-workers, students, and other people whom I had been offering free peer coaching because they had had a chance to experience this. Now, one other insight I'll share with you guys, which is before I started charging for it this January, right? I went with the approach of, hey, how hard can this be? I think I'm good at this coaching thing. I'm going to offer it for free to people and they'll take me up, right? So I went to my network with, hey, if you guys are interested in some free coaching sessions, just hit me up. Many people would say, hey, let's chat. And we'd have a first conversation. And then I'd say, hey, if you want to follow up anytime, just let me know. Very, very few people would reach back out to you. Now, these very same people, when they're paying me a small token amount of money, are happy to meet every week. So what I realized is this actually works two ways. If you're offering a free service to someone, especially if they know you and they're reasonable people, they feel hesitant to make an ask of your time without offering you something in return. So it's almost like you're not charging them for you, you're charging them for them. When you charge them even a small or token amount, they have some commitment or some skin in the game, and then it brings them back. And they feel that with this value exchange, they feel more comfortable making an ask on your time. So I just want to make sure I touched on these. How did I get my first client? Just from my peer coaches. How long did it take to understand what your niche is? I think it's through the peer coaching experience, coach a variety of people and pay very close attention to what pieces you're enjoying the most and where you're able to create most value. How does somebody who's interested in serving multiple demographics market at the same time? Here, the key is one at a time. Take the example of that coach I was talking about who both does parent coaching and couples coaching and CEOs. He just has three different presences. Somebody who happens to find him as a CEO coach mainly sees him as a CEO coach and maybe a little footnote saying, hey, these are other ancillary things that I offer. Somebody who's coming to him as a couples coach primarily sees him as a couples coach with testimonials from other couples who have benefited from him, and maybe with some mild footnote on, hey, these are other things which I offer. So I'll pause there for a little bit, but I hope I covered some of these, and feel free, Kenneth, to redirect me or however you want to engage the audience. Yep.
Yeah, there was this question from Preeti as well. Is there any exercise which helps to recognize the niche? So this niche is coming up repetitively. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Right. So here's the simple thing, right? Let's actually give my example, which I'm like, hey, in fact, if I look at my experience so far, right, amongst my paying clients, so I have coached early stage entrepreneurs. These are people who don't have another job outside of their startup and are either in the process of getting to product market fit, the process of growing something where they have some early product market fit, or the process of deciding, do I want to make a jump from a regular job to this? There are some others who are, let's say, mid-career professionals in, say, product management, who are managers of product management, or a director of engineering, or a director of technical program management. There are a few coaches, because a lot of the peer coaching we do is with coaches, and these are really early stage entrepreneurs. The same kinds of challenges with early stage entrepreneurs face around getting to product market fit, getting to revenue, recurring revenue, retention, engagement, etc., are the same kinds of things which coaches face. So I think the exercise is, as you're going through your coaching journey and logging those coaching hours, be very deliberate in client selection. Who are the people who you're offering free peer coaching to? And then after those coaching sessions, reflect, observe, and write down who are the people you enjoyed coaching the most. What did you enjoy about that? And how did they benefit? Because as you go from, say, doing free peer coaching to paid coaching, the people who benefited the most from your free peer coaching are the best candidates for your first clients. The one other thing I want to say is this, something again Ujjwalji told us during our foundations course, which is coaching is a product which is bought, not sold. What this means is, suppose, for example, I'm in Mount Mew and I decide, hey, dude, I could use a coach. It's very unlikely that I go to Google search for Coach Mountain View, click on the first SEO result, call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for a coach, which is how you might actually look for a plumber. The way I'd look for a coach would be, hey, I'm thinking about a coach. Let me ask people I know and trust and say, I'm looking for a coach. This is the challenge I'm looking to deal with. Do you know anyone? They might recommend a few numbers and names. And it is then that I go to their websites and presences and things like that and learn about them. So this, again, I think while it's important and interesting to have a presence, I think especially for brand new beginner coaches, in my opinion, this is just one opinion, so there might be others, the importance of a website is perhaps overrated, because I know many very successful coaches, take Ujjwalji, for example, or others, who have an active presence, but almost all their business comes through referrals. Your best source of new clients are your current clients. Like, let's take, for example, another fictitious person. Let's call her Sita, who was my first client. So I had been coaching her. I'd known her, she's a friend. So I'd been coaching her since almost the March, April of last year. And when I started this paid thing in Jan, she was the first person I asked. I was like, hey, I'm thinking of trying this experiment. It's a monthly subscription. Are you interested? She was like, oh, yeah, let's formalize this thing, which we've been doing a one-off. And we've been doing weekly conversations since Jan. Now, a month or two in, when she was like, hey, this is super valuable, in fact, these were blind referrals. She was like, hey, I have a friend who I've been mentoring, and I think she would benefit from what you're offering. Are you okay if I share your details with her? I was like, oh, yes, please. And she, in fact, referred me to one of her friends who's again been a client since around April or May. So I would say two things, which is the process of getting from 0 to 1 is very different from the process of getting from 1 to 10, and which is different from growth beyond. For 0 to 1, look at all the people you have coached so far. Think about where you've added maximum benefit, where you have enjoyed the process the most, and ask them if they want to enter into a paid agreement. For 1 to 100, if this is working out, ask them if they know others who would benefit in similar situations. For example, most people would know other people at work, friends, or otherwise who would benefit, and throw in referral bonuses. Make it attractive for your current clients who are happy and fulfilled to share this with their friends. The one other thing I'll say in coaching some coaches who are building their businesses, right? Some people hesitate, which is like, hey, I don't want to tell my friends about this and ask them because it just doesn't feel right. So what I tell them, right, is this. Now imagine a completely different metaphor. Let's say I had a bottle of nectar. Let's say a sip of this nectar will just make you feel happier and more fulfilled and more insightful and make good things happen. Okay, let's just say. Now, suppose I had an infinite supply of this nectar and I wanted to give it away to people. If I went to a friend of mine and said, hey, I've got this nectar. If you know anybody in this situation, have them hit me up and I'm happy to share this nectar with them. So at this point, would you feel like you are selling them something, or would you feel like you are helping them? The mindset shift here is replace the word sell with serve, which is, I want to serve people. This is how I have been able to serve people and some people who have been happy with my service. If you know anybody who would benefit from this, have them let me know. And since you're a friend of mine, I'm happy to give them, I don't know, let's say a 10% discount. Now, this changes it from I'm asking them for a favor to I'm offering them a favor. Hey, I have this nectar available. And since you're a friend, I'm going to share it with you. I'm not asking you to do me a favor to tap your network and do a lot of work and do things. I have a magic secret recipe available, which I'm sharing with you because you're a friend. And I think that thing, multiple people have told me, shifts things considerably for them.
Wow, wonderful. That metaphor was very interesting. And we're almost 43 minutes into our conversation, Vivek. We've still got a good strength. So you're doing a great job. Thank you. I think there's been great pointers, specific pointers to take away. So it's been great going so far. And this metaphor around sharing, and you equated that with mindset, right? It leads me to my next question. When you look at specifically on the business of coaching world, and you're evolving, and you're in that, either in that initial stage, or you've kicked off, now you're evolving it, to you, what should be the approach when it comes to preparation, mindset? What does it really take from an angle perspective of what it means physically, mentally, emotionally? I would like you to dwell on your experience and share with us. It's not always easy, right? Like, well, most of the things that you've said sounds great, but they're going to be bound to be things which are difficult. There's going to be ups and downs. So how do you, from a mindset as a business of coach, work on these aspects?
Excellent question. So, a couple of things. Let me share with you guys what are the things which I have done, so I'll answer this question in two ways. I'll talk about what has helped me, what I've found really helpful, and then maybe what are some things which, yeah, let's start with that. So, first thing, right, rely heavily on peers. For example, when I did my coach training with Ujjwalji Foundations, a whole bunch of us who did foundations with Ujjwalji also went on to do a PCC with him. Some of us also repeated that PCC program with his trainer, Cindy. All of us are closely in touch. And now Ujjwalji does a fantastic job of tending to a community. These are all the students who have trained with him. And it's a very rich group where we exchange resources, ask questions, etc., etc. I'll give you a few examples. Let's say, for example, I was interested in learning about, in fact, a question which came in today morning. Hey, somebody said, hey, I'm preparing a presentation for psychological safety in organizations. And I'm looking at the Fearless organization and a couple of resources. Does anybody else have any recommendations? Immediately, there was a flurry of, hey, I have done this several times before. I'm happy to help. This is another resource you should look at, etc., etc. So what people don't do enough is ask. Almost everybody is very happy to offer their help to everybody, even coaching journeys, right? Whenever somebody comes up with a question, it is amazing to see the generosity of everybody who helps with answers and resources and just DM me and everything else. I think all of us need to get into the habit of asking more, which is whenever you have a challenge. And I can see how it can initially feel a little daunting, especially in a group of strangers. Start with your safest space. For example, I'll make an offer. If any of you guys have any question you're struggling with, just WhatsApp me and ask me. I may not have the answer, but I'll be able to help you guys think about it and what forums to use and how to discover it. So that is the first step, ask. Second, find a bunch of people who are, let's say, a step or two behind you and a step or two ahead of you. And this is a recent experiment. So 6 of us, all of us who trained with Ujjwalji, formed a little mastermind. We've been running 3 or 4 weeks in, and so far it's going really great. Where the objective of this mastermind is essentially, we think of it like a group team coaching something exercise, where we think about each of us articulate, these are the goals that I have for myself, and these are the goals that I've been struggling with a little bit. And then for each of those goals, I now have this team of 5 people for whom it is their goal that I accomplish this goal of mine. And they're all here for me. So, couple of things I'll tell you about this. There is this guy, in fact, shout out to him. There's this guy, Major Tapan Arora. He's an amazing guy. So he was talking about there was a time when he used to run a mastermind for marathon running. So it was like they used to have a WhatsApp group and they used to often get together at 5 a.m., work together and things like that, work out. So a lot of people were like, hey, Tapan, we're interested. Can we join in? So Tapan was like, we're happy to have you, but you have to earn your spot. So why don't you show up for a couple of these 5 a.m. meetings? And once you have, we'll admit you to the WhatsApp group and then we're happy to have you and things like that. This was thing one. Thing two was if you miss, say, 2 or 3 of the practice sessions, this was an agreement you entered into before, then you'd be dropped from the group because it's not for you right now. We're happy to have you back in the group when you're able to bring that commitment to your practice. And he was sharing stories about how he'd initiated this, which is when there was a small group of 6 of them who would run. The thing would be if people did not show up at the designated spot, everybody would go to their place and bang on their door and wake them up and get them in. And he was relating how after he had instituted this practice, there was this one time when he overslept and everybody showed up at his door and was banging on his door and getting him out. So what I would say is different things work for different people. What works for me is, and I think this is true of most people, a book which is worth reading and rereading and just the blink, or you can listen to a YouTube video, is this book called Atomic Habits by this guy, James Clear. For example, he makes simple observations, right? Things like, suppose I decide I'm going to go work out next week at 5 a.m. every day. It's almost trivially easy for me at 4:55 to say, you know what, fine, I'll start tomorrow. I'll drink some water and I'll chill. Now, let's say I was going to go work out with Ruchi. And let's say I had heard dumbbells and we were going to meet at 5 a.m. and start working out. There's a much, much higher chance that I will actually be there on time so that we can do our workout together, right? So that kind of thing. Commitments you make to others, you're much more likely to keep them than commitments you make to yourself. Just Google up Atomic Habits. If you're a reader or a listener, there's audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube videos, all of the above, and you just need a quick 5 or 10 minute blurb. If you want, WhatsApp me and I'll also send you a free link where you can listen to it for 25 minutes. I think the point I was trying to get to, so what the takeaway from that book, right? James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So reflection practice on where is it that I'm slipping and what system can I put in place which makes it easier for me to do the beneficial thing and makes it harder for me to do the less beneficial thing. And then just setting up practices and spaces. I won't summarize the entire book here, but I will very, very highly recommend it. I think being reflective, coming back to that thing about, so first, since all of you guys are coaches, right? In the context of setting up your own business, get one or multiple coaches, peer coaches, and all your peer coaching sessions, have them be about this. What is it that you want from your business? What are your most closely held values? What is the kind of difference that you want to create in the world? Who are the people you want to serve? What do you want to help them accomplish? How do you want to contribute to these journeys? All excellent questions to bring to coaching sessions. In fact, this is another key thing. I should not miss saying this, which many of my key breakthroughs as I've been thinking about this. And by the way, I would also still consider myself a beginner in terms of, say, the business of coaching, because I quite literally started in the Jan of this year. I'm seeing some questions coming in about pricing. I'll touch on them briefly, but these are actually areas where I still need to learn myself. What I wanted to say is you guys are a network of coaches. These are guys who are in the business of helping other people realize their full potential. So they can all help each of you reach your full potential. Find out people who you feel are a couple of steps ahead of you. And then if they have the time, they find out how they're able to help. Maybe it's through sharing some resources. Maybe it's sharing some stories. Maybe it's offering a couple of coaching sessions. Ask for help. I want to also quickly touch on, so Yasit, You asked about what about pricing, where the niche can pay. So I think this is why another thing I will strongly recommend. This used to be free, now it's a $15 thing. There's also free variations available. This guy, Dr. Richard Barrett, has this thing called the personal values assessment. And doing that will help you get behind the why of what you're doing. For example, even if you look at the entrepreneurship journey, right? Many people get into it for different reasons. Some people get into it because they like the autonomy and the freedom and the ability to be their own boss. That's a great reason to be an entrepreneur. Some people like to get into it because it's a very quick means for wealth creation if you follow the right steps. Some people like the risk. Some people like many great entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship because it is the only way they know to solve a problem which they want to see solved. This is why many entrepreneurs, for example, so that's one line, which is, this is a problem I want to see solved, and entrepreneurship is the only way I'm able to see right now in terms of solving the problem. Another reason might be excitement, a new area, a challenge I can take on. Maybe I create something of value and sell it and move on to something else. I think the point I was trying to make here is understanding the why of you are in this business of coaching can help you decide whether you want to say serve underserved populations, whether you want to serve high-flying CEOs, whether you want to serve people struggling with, say, grief and loss and things like that, parents, couples, and so on. And be very realistic about your needs. Put your needs as well, because they're important. I think, for example, the way I think about this, right, it's a dial. Initially with Work Genie, I feel I was very idealistic. And then what I came to learn is, look, Vivek, it's all good, even if you want to operate a charity, but realize that you cannot have a google.org without a google.com. Even if your only intention is to serve and to serve as many people as possible, the reason you need to build a sustainable business model about it, charge a reasonable amount, and do that value exchange is first because of that thing I talked about earlier, which is when people are giving you money, they're more likely to make reasoned asks of you. And also because it can help you broaden your impact. So in terms of niche, I think different niches will pay differently. And the beauty is you can actually tune it. Like, remember that guy I was talking about who serves CEOs? When he coaches these CEOs, he charges them a pretty penny because A, they're able to afford it, and also B, because his coaching helps makes differences which count in the tens of millions of dollars in their businesses. When he's coaching a teacher, he might do it for free. So you can do both and you can adjust that balance. Maybe there's a time when you're bringing up a family and money is important to you for your personal cash flow. And most of what you do is paid coaching in the business sector. Or maybe there's a different time where you have wealth and you actually want to give away and you can actually do some pro bono coaching or low bono coaching. By the way, leveraging the insight of people are more invested in things when they pay for it, but also wanting to serve people who might not be able to afford it, you can charge them small token amounts. In fact, one of the ideas which I first learned about from Sunil, what he was like, because his contractual obligations with his company don't allow him to charge people, the arrangement he has with them, and I've seen a couple of other coaches adopt, is so I'm happy to coach you, and as value exchange, I will ask you to make a contribution to a charity of your choice in the amount of your choice and send me a receipt as a sign that you have done it. So you can use all kinds of creative approaches like that. I also want to just briefly touch on Ashok's question, which is how much of the, so I think the product leader identity, it's actually very related. There's a lot I could talk about on this, Ashok. Happy to also touch base offline. I want to give it back to Kenneth just so I make sure he has the 4 minutes in terms of how he wants to bring this home. But happy to talk about that at a different time.
Sure, Vivek, and if you could call out that test again, the value test, Robert, there's a question there.
The value test. Oh, it's called the PVA, or the Personal Values Assessment by Dr. Richard Barrett. There you go.
Richard Barrett. Thank you. All right, so we have 3 minutes with us, maybe a good, so we were technically in the question answer round. I'm so glad that we picked up the questions along the way. So thank you for that, Vivek. What stood out was how we can fall to the level of our system. And when we look at it from the coach's world, it's all about trusting the process, trusting your coaching skills, trusting the system. And that, I think, also relates what I'm hearing and learning is a lot of it evolves around how the business of coaching also operates at a ground level. So thank you for these wonderful insights. Would anyone like to make a comment, share anything with Vivek, pass on any inputs? Would like to come on the mic? Maybe we could take this opportunity now. We've got a couple of minutes at our hands. So Riddhi Tucker says, if you could recommend some books to understand the business of coaching better.
So here's my answer to this. I just replied over there. There's at least two books which I'm told are excellent, both of which I also have on my bookshelf, but I have somewhat embarrassingly not yet read. But I will share both of those with you. One of them is called Wealth Creation for Coaches, and one of them is called something else. I'll look up the names and share it with you guys. There's a couple of really good books on the topic. Sunil.
Sunil has his hand up. Yes, please, Sunil.
No, I just thought as this is ending, I'll just thank both of you, Kenneth and Vivek, to come forward to start this session. This is basically a starting point for the business of coaching. It's a platform which we thought we will organize for everybody to come out, and because this is the business, we have to put ourselves out there. And Kenneth and Vivek offered to put themselves out there to organize this. I think I would like everybody to come forward and use this platform in the best way they can. There's one good thing that I heard Vivek talk about is about using this forum as your coaches to get your business moving. And what I wanted to look at is how you can create urgency in your own work to move forward. Because I've been hearing this issue about how do I charge, how do I find niches, and this has been on for years. Some people have this question pending for months together. I think we don't need to keep it pending, because if you want the business to be successful, it has to be today. It doesn't have to wait for a week or 2 weeks. It's about what can you do today. And there are enough people here who are doing business. There are people who are already getting clients from various corporates, large corporates with, I would say corporates is a very generic word. I'm saying entrepreneurs being coached, like what Vivek talked about. There are people who are going and selling to uh, institutions. So if you need an experience, if you want some help, there are people who can help you out here. Even in terms of how do I write a proposal, these could be very simple things if this is the first time you're doing it. And the objective of this group is just that, to be able to help so that others can handhold you to go forward. This is not a coaching forum. This is a helping forum to help you grow in your business. Okay. I just wanted to leave that. Thanks, Kenneth and Vivek, for organizing this for us.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Sunil. And I just wanted to, I would be remiss if I did not mention that huge kudos to Sunil, because in the background, he's been helping a lot in terms of both prodding us when needed, encouraging us, nudging, and helping us we made this happen. So lots of background work happening from him. And thank you, Sunil, for that.
Not Vivek, that's the reason he's known as the god of coaching. You missed that part. there's a reason behind it. But a heartfelt thank you to everyone for making time and staying with us. Thank you, Vivek. This has been really, really useful insights and insights that we can actually implement and take back with us. So fantastic. And thank you, everyone. Would like to close on this note.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It was really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. And please feel free to reach out with any questions. So open offer, just I'm a WhatsApp message away. Take
Thanks,
care.
Vivek.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, great. Awesome. This is, I think, fantastic.
Awesome. It went
Sunil, you're on mute.
brilliantly.
Sunil,
You
mute
can
your-
stop the recording.
Oh, yeah. You're good idea. Let's do that.